right, this is part 1 of lesson 11-1. We're going to be talking about the area of a parallelogram. And then in part 2 of lesson 11-1, we're going to talk about finding the area of a triangle. So both of these should be review for you guys, but we are going to break it down, make sure you understand it, because in lesson 11-2, we're going to get a little more complicated with different shapes and finding their area. Okay, so for the area of a parallelogram, don't forget that a parallelogram is a shape, a quadrilateral, four-sided shape, where the opposite sides are both parallel. So the two sides are parallel, the top and bottom are parallel. So to figure out the area, I want you to just kind of think of, I'll zoom in on this, I want you to kind of think of it as a rectangle that the corner was cut off and just moved over to the side, right? So for this parallelogram, if we kind of think of this corner as just moving it, just sliding it on this side, now we've created a rectangle, right? So really, the area of a parallelogram is the same thing as an area of a rectangle, the height times the base, okay? The base doesn't change because we're taking, let's say this was 5 feet, and we're just moving it over here, and it'd be 5 feet over here. So the base doesn't change just because we think of this corner as being moved, okay? So now we've got a rectangle, base times height, that's it. So let's do a couple examples. Before I get into that, actually, because I looked at these ahead of time, I want to review with you really quickly just so you remember the two special case right triangles and finding the length of their sides. So remember when we talked about 45, 45, 90 triangles, where we have a right triangle, fingernails look awful, a right triangle, and then both of the other angles of the triangle, one's 90 degrees, makes it right. The other two are both equal. They're both congruent. They're both 45 degrees. So if that's the case, then the two legs are congruent, and they're both, we just call them x. And then for the hypotenuse, whatever the legs are, whatever one leg is, you just multiply it by the square root of 2. And that's how you find the hypotenuse of a 45, 45, 90 triangle. Remember a 30, 60, 90. This is all review, so I hope you guys remember it. If not, write it down real quick. 30, 60, 90 triangle. So it's a right triangle. One of the angles is 30, one of them is 60. So the side across from the 30-degree angle is our short leg, and it's always x. That's what we need to know to begin with. The hypotenuse is just double the short leg. Whatever this is, if this was 10, hypotenuse would be 20. If this was 8, hypotenuse would be 16. Hypotenuse is double the short leg. The long leg, which is between these two, is just the short leg times the square root of 3, which is funky, I know. I know that's not super easy to remember. That's why you have to write it down. Hopefully you guys remember it when we did these lessons, but you will need to remember that for what we're about to do. Okay, so for number 1 here, for each of these 4 problems, these are the 4 we're gonna do, you have to find the perimeter of the parallelogram, which is the distance all the way around the outside, and then you have to find the area, which is just the height times the base. Okay, so let's go over that. Let me zoom in a little. All right, first off here for number 1, for the perimeter, what do we know here that's going to help us with perimeter? Well, we know this bottom side is 18, right? The two pieces together make up the entire bottom and the top across from it in a parallelogram. They're both congruent. All right, so this side is 18. We know the height is 16, but for the perimeter to add around the outside, we don't know what this slanted line, what that length is. We know this is 18 and this is 18, but we don't know this and this. So how can I figure it out? Well, I've got this right triangle right here. That was not a straight line. And I know 2 of the sides of that right triangle, so can't I use Pythagorean Theorem to find this side? Yep, absolutely. I'm going to call this side x or whatever I want for now. Okay, so I'm going to say 16 squared plus 8 squared equals the hypotenuse squared. Right, 16 squared is 256, 8 squared is 64. Add those together and we get, what, 320, I think? 64, 256, yep, 320. And then, of course, to figure out the length of the side, we have to take the square root. And the square root of 320 is this big number, and it tells us in the directions to round to the nearest tenth. So we're going to use 17.9. So this side here is 17.9 feet. So now we can add up the outside here to get the perimeter, right? We have 18 plus 18 plus 17.9 plus 17.9. 18 times 2 plus 17.9 times 2, which is almost 18. 17 equals plus 18 times 2, which is 36. So we get about 71.8. 71.8, and that's in feet, not square feet. It's just length. It's just distance if we walked around the outside. So 71.8 feet. Now we want to find the area. So we're going to multiply, pretend like we're moving this little triangle right here over to this side. Right, like we moved it over, and then we've got a big, nice rectangle. So we're going to multiply 16 times the base, which is 18. So 16 times 18 is 288. And its area, so that's in feet squared, or square feet. Okay, so there's our perimeter, and there's our area of this parallelogram. Okay, let's do the one below it, and then the other two are when we're going to have to remember the 30, 60, 90, and the 45, 45, 90. All right, so for this guy down here, zoom in a little, I need that space. So it gives us actually the side. So we know this is 10, so this side has to be 10, and this bottom whole thing is 20, so the top has to be 20. So for the perimeter, I'm just going to add 10 plus 20 plus 10 plus 20, right? 2 times 10 plus 2 times 20, because I have two sides that are 10 and two sides that are 20. 2 times 10 is 20. 2 times 20 is 40. 20 plus 40 is 60, and that's in inches. So the perimeter of this guy is 60 inches. And now we want to find the area. So we're just going to multiply the height times the base, because again, we're thinking of this as taking this corner right here, kind of just in your brain, and moving it to this corner over here so that we then have a rectangle. Okay, so 8 times 20 is the base times the height, or the height times the base. So that's 160, and that's in square inches. That's our area. Okay, hopefully that's making sense. All right, so the next two are, they just have a couple more steps involved. I'm probably gonna have to have paper here. All right, so we have to find the perimeter. That one's gonna be the easiest because all four sides are marked congruent. This is a rhombus, right? Type of parallelogram. So we're gonna add all four sides up. 24 times 4 equals, I'm not good with numbers, so I gotta use my calculator. That's a joke, by the way. 96. 96, and that's in inches. And it's not inches squared. It's not area, it's just perimeter, it's just distance. Okay, so now we want to find the height of this parallelogram, right? So how do I do that? All I know is that all four sides are 24. That's all I know. And that this angle is 60, right? Okay, so if I were to move this triangle to this side, oh, I kind of wrote there and got in the way. Well, that's not a good example. This is a 90-degree angle, just like it is here. If this is 60 and this is a full 90-degree angle, that means just this little piece has to be 30 degrees. And if this is 30 and this is 90, this one has to be 60. So we now have a 30, 60, 90 triangle, right? We've got one that looks like this. And this is 30 and this is 60, right? So we know that since all four sides are 24, we know this hypotenuse is 24. In a 30, 60, 90, we also know that whatever the short leg is, you double it to get the hypotenuse. So what times 2 equals 24? 12, right? So this little piece up here is 12, which we don't really care. That doesn't really do anything for us. We want to know what this is. We want to know what the height of our parallelogram is, right? So now I know in a 30, 60, 90, whatever the short leg is, I multiply it by the square root of 3. So 12 square root of 3. Okay, so the length of the height, or the height, is 12 square root of 3 inches. So then to find the area, I've got to multiply the height, 12 square root of 3, times the base, which is 24. Okay, so 12 square root of 3 times 24. So when I do that, instead of 12 times the square root of 3, I'm going to do the square root of 3 and then times 12. And then I got to multiply that times 24. And I get 498.8, which I'm just going to round to the nearest tenth, keep it at 498.8. 498.8, and that's in inches squared because it's area. So our perimeter was 96. Our area is almost 500 square inches, not quite. Okay, next one, last one here. Then we're gonna do a little word problem. Number 5, this is very similar. It tells us it's pointing to here. Okay, this is 15. So we know this is 15, and since this is 30, we know this is 30, so perimeter is easy. We've got 2 times 15 plus 2 times 30 equals, that's 30, that's 60, so that's 90 feet for our perimeter. And then for our area, we have to know what the height is to multiply it by the base. We know the base, we don't know the height. We know if we move this guy over here, it's going to be a 45, 45, 90 triangle because this is a 90-degree corner, so which means this is a 90-degree corner. And if this is already 45, then this has to be 45. Same thing up here. If this is 90 and this is 45, this angle would have to be 45. So in this guy right here, these two corners are equal. Okay, I know that whatever the short leg is, these are both the same length, multiply it by square root of 2 and get 15. So if I know that this is already 15, how can I figure out what x is, right? I'll do this over here. So I know that x times the square root of 2 is going to equal 15. So I want to get x by itself, so I'm going to divide by square root of 2, divide by square root of 2, these go away. X equals 15 over the square root of 2. I can go ahead and divide that if I wanted to, but just as a quick review, remember when you have a fraction, you can't have a radical on the bottom. Yes, I could divide this in my calculator. You can go ahead and do that. Just the long way to go about it is to get rid of a radical sign. I'm not going to get rid of the 2, just the radical over the 2. The only way to do that is to multiply it by the square root of 2. And whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. Remember this? So now I've got the square root of 2 squared. That's why I multiplied it by itself, because the only thing that can cancel out a square root symbol is a squared symbol. And on top, I've got 15 square root of 2. So this little 2 cancels with the square root symbol, and I'm left with 15 square root of 2 all over 2. Okay, so which is, I still need to change it to a decimal in order to do my math, but remember, if you are just having fraction form, you can't leave a radical in the denominator. All right, so I'm going to do 15, oh, never mind. Square root of 2 times square root of 2 times 15 divided by 2. And we're going to round to the nearest tenth, so it's about 10.6. So here, this height is about 10.6. So to figure out the area, I'm going to multiply the height, 10.6, by the base of 30. And calculator, 10.6 times 30. 318. As I can't see. 318 about square feet. Okay? Please, please, please make sure that you're showing all of that work. Whether you have to do it on a separate sheet of paper and attach that sheet of paper, whatever you have to do, but I need to see the work. That's what the grade on your assignment is for. The work, not the answers. Because let's be honest, it's virtual learning and you guys can look up the answers and find them. That's not what the whole point of this is. I have to take a whole bunch of time. I don't have to, I like to do it, but I'm taking a lot of time to make these videos to teach you guys. So I'd like for you to try and learn it, and I need to see your work to know that you're trying to learn it. All right, so for this word problem, last one of the video, we have the tile floor. Bathroom tile floor is made of black and white parallelograms. Each parallelogram is made of 2 triangles with dimensions as shown. Find the perimeter and area of one parallelogram, this entire thing. All right, so this is what we're focused on. So area and perimeter, it gives me this guy right here, and it gives me this bottom. Oh, for the top, okay. So this entire base, why is it telling me this is 2? I don't know. The base is 11, so we're gonna we can figure out the perimeter real quick. So 7 plus 11 plus 7 plus 11. We don't care about the one triangle. We care about this whole parallelogram, right? So this is 11, this is 7, this is 11, this is 7. All right, so far so good. We add it together. 22 plus 14 is 35. And that's in centimeters, so that's our perimeter. All right, and now I need to figure out the area of the parallelogram. All right, so they went ahead and took this little corner off right here and moved it over here. Right, so they turned it into this triangle here, or this half a rectangle. So if we wanted to imagine it being the whole rectangle here, all we have to do is multiply the height times the base, right? So this whole base right here is 13, this whole. If this is 11, oh, because I took this off. Okay, so this whole thing is supposed to be 13. 13, 13, so I need to add 4 to this, so my perimeter is 39. Sorry. They just drew it funky. They put this all the way here, but if you had cut this off, it shouldn't go all the way to the end here. It should be cut off, but that's okay. No problem. All right, so this 2 is here because it came from this side, but we had cut it off and moved it over. Okay, so now back to, this is 13. So the height is 6.7, the base is 13, so we're going to multiply 6.7 times 13. And I get about 87.1. 87.1, and that's centimeters squared. That's my area. Okay, I hope that made sense. Yeah, the reason why they had, I wondered why this was 11 and this was 2, like, where did this come from? But it's slanted. So this was like this, and then they cut this side off and moved it over here. So this shouldn't even be here, but that's okay. They just drew it funky. It should be like this. This should be 13, this should be 13, 7, and 7. So the area is 39, and the perimeter is 39, and the area is about 87.1 square centimeters. If you guys have questions on finding the area of a parallelogram, let me know.